Hi, I'm Linda Moulton Howe, reporter and editor of earthfiles.com, a news website that I have been doing since 1999 on science, environment, and real X-Files. I have been trying to get to the bottom of the UFO secret for 43 years and all of its many, many facets that are so complicated. And I am so grateful to have a lifetime achievement by the Parapod to come to Santa Clarita and meet many of you and be able to talk in a setting in 2023 in which we will be able, I hope, to talk about UFOs and ETs in a straightforward and honest way, while the government of the United States and other nations have classified reality. And I'm here to try to unclassify reality so that we all can share in the truth that the power brokers of this planet have known for centuries.
This is Truth Be Told.
That not only are there reptilians here,
new evidence of UFO fleets.
We were close to nuclear war.
To help you transform so that you can live your highest truth.
We're not being told just because we're not ready for it.
Radio stations of frequency, vibrational.
I was a homicide detective with LAPD.
UFOs increase. Visitations. Have you ever encountered an angel? And if you have, what is your definition of what an angel is? Many religions have angels in their history. Well, today we're going to find out with the award-winning writer, archpriestess of the Fellowship of Isis. And we're going to talk about her latest book, The Ancient Tradition of Angels. And if you do come encounter with an angel, what does that mean? Have you been chosen by fate or destiny to something great? Normandi Ellis looks at the angelic dimensions of spiritual traditions around the world from the ancient past to the present, showing how angels are beings of light consciousness. She explores angels from Judeo-Christian and Islamic faiths, Hinduism and Buddhism, the beliefs of ancient Egypt, as well as contemporary angelic encounters, including her own. So let's listen to her story and talk about her book. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to Truth Be Told Studios for the first time, award-winning author, Normandi Ellis.
Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. For the people, last week we were supposed to have you on, and a big old storm came through and knocked your electricity out, so we're glad that you can make time for us this week.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being patient with me.
Oh, for sure. I didn't really have a choice, but we know, like I said, when Mother Nature gets mad, we just have to go along with it. And sorry that sound like you lost some people in the area, so that's too bad. So yeah, we'll send the prayers out to those families. So, well, we're going to talk in depth about your book, and I want to ask you to really kind of start off the conversation. And the book is The Ancient Traditions of Angels, the Power and Influence of Sacred Messengers. Now, every religion, I think every country has always talked about angels. The Bible talks about angels. I'm sure different religions talk about angels. What are angels? A lot of us know what angels are through what the Bible says, but do you have your own take on that?
Well, I think that they are, angels are a state of consciousness, first of all, to me. That is what I believe. So they will appear in ways that we are programmed to receive them, I suppose is the way to say that, according to whatever your Christian, Judeo-Christian, Hindu, Islam tradition is. You will see an angel appearing to you in that form. And so even the Bible tells us that they could appear as people, who just sort of appear from out of nowhere. They can appear winged. Sometimes they appear as shapes, geometric shapes. Sometimes they have other aspects. So a lot of it has to do with the consciousness that we bring to perceiving the angel.
Yeah, and I'm just going to touch on this real quickly, and even a lot of people these days that I've talked to, because truth be told is all about the paranormal genre, and so we talk about UFOs. A lot of times people are confusing angels and aliens because they are kind of spiritual beings anyway. Just a quick thought of what you might think, because I've heard about people saying I had visions of angels or visions of extraterrestrials that could have been just angels coming in a form they just didn't really, or maybe connected it to as a alien.
Right. Well, I don't mean to be facetious about it.
No,
but
please.
Some people think tomatoes are fruits and some think they're vegetables.
Right.
So I really am saying that it has to do with consciousness. I personally believe that they are a different species than we are.
Right.
We don't know what species extraterrestrials are, but we assume that they live and breathe and have those kinds of life forms similar to ours. But angels don't necessarily do that. They appear in an instant and then they leave.
Right.
And usually the definition of an angel is that it's a messenger, that it brings a message from a higher consciousness. Now, what ETs are doing here, I'd like to ask them myself.
Right. Well, what are typical forms do angels or typically appear as? Like I said, we do talk about the big, large, white wings, and I know you said a little bit about they do appear in different forms, but what are the typical ones?
Well, I would say typically, when we see an angel these days, when I see an angel these days, they tend to come from out of nowhere. They don't have wings, but they are definitely messengers to bring me information that I need at that time. And it's not that I've summoned them, but that they are protecting me. And I'll just say that for an example. One time when I was traveling in Egypt, I went to go back to a vendor to get a icon of Hathor. It was a big, beautiful thing. And so I got it, but the kiosks were closing and I didn't know where I was. I went by myself. And so everything's closing up shop. They're rolling up the carpets, they're shutting the shades, and the lights are going out. And I thought, oh shit, I don't know. I probably shouldn't have said that. I don't know where I am.
You can say whatever you want to say.
Okay. And I didn't know how to get back to where I was safe. And I heard steps behind me. And there was someone following me. And so I'd cross to the other side of the street and they would cross, and I'd go down a different street and they would go down the same street. And I started to get really frightened. And I clung to my goddess statue. And a few minutes later, around the corner came this man. I'll say he's a man. He was a young boy in a horse and carriage. And he looked at me and he said, "Lady, your hotel is that way." And I said, okay. So I just followed where he pointed and I went straight into the lobby and I was safe. And then I thought, how did he know where my hotel was?
Didn't realize until you got back. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that was an angel. I certainly needed a lot of angels on that first trip. Oh boy, I didn't know what I was doing.
Now, do you think the wings itself are a metaphor, or do angels really have wings? Like you said, some do, some don't. But is it more of a metaphor that wings appear?
In my perception, it is more of a metaphor that the wings appear to represent in a symbolic way the speed at which that individual messenger comes to us.
Right.
And so I don't necessarily know that the wings are part of the anatomy, but perhaps they are for some people.
Well, you spoke of Egypt, and I'm going to jump in there a little bit because I'm going to show a couple pictures how these winged type people flying over, it looks like, I don't know if it's a pharaoh or somebody, but I mean there are winged people in a lot of ancient Egypt hieroglyphs. What is your take on the ancient civilizations? I mean, because how far back do we know angels have been known of or talked about? Do you know?
Well, I don't think that we really know. I think it goes back as far as at least 4,000 BC, because we have pictures of winged beings that far back. But even more than that, we have Zoroastrian beings. We have a lot of beings in the Manichaean tradition. There are a lot of winged beings. They're always winged, So I think that sort of comes with the territory. And that's, it's that's something that I'm trying to remember his name now. I forget. He was a first researcher of Egyptian and all kinds of angels, and he was trying to figure out what was an angel. He had 500 questions that he asked himself. This was like back in the Middle Ages, and he kept saying, "Are they this? Are they that? Are they this? Are they human? How many can stand on the head of a pin?" That question. Thomas Aquinas, that's who I'm trying to think of. And so his first book was the first book about angels. Now, what you saw there were images of what the Egyptians called Ba souls, winged beings, who would come to visit the dead. They were an aspect of the personality. As we understand it, those weren't angels. They were part of a person's personality.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But the goddesses, Isis, we saw an image of her, and she was definitely winged, and she puts her arms around Osiris and acts as a guardian angel and protects him, so, yeah.
I mean, that definitely makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah. And, but, I mean, I interview a lot of people about ancient history. I'm a big history buff, so ancient history, and especially religion, for some reason really fascinates me. I practice the religions that I research on or look into, but I find it fascinating how it begins and how it kind of some, as my dad used to say, peter out, and some become very popular. And now look at Catholics and Christianity, they seem to keep getting bigger and bigger. But angels have always been a part of pretty much every culture. And that's very, very fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's what fascinated me about it. I mean, when I first started looking at it, I thought, okay, Judeo-Christian. And then I knew that there were some in the Islamic tradition. And once I started researching and going further back, I mean, there were angels across the Silk Road, in all different religious faiths. And there were angels in, though they would call them devas, but they appeared as if they were angels. They acted as if they were angels in the Hindu tradition and in the Tibetan Buddhism traditions as well.
Well, you mentioned one encounter that you feel was an angel, but tell us about your encounter. Do you have other encounters of angels appearing to you, or?
I do.
She's like,
I had a very interesting thing happen to me. It was on the day of the convergence. Oh, what is that? Harmonic convergence. And I went with a friend of mine. We wanted to see what would happen. We went up to the top of a hill, and sat and waited for the sun to come up. And here comes this beautiful image of the sun, but it doesn't peak right there. A sudden mountain, almost like a golden mountain, appeared
Right.
across Denver. I mean, Denver's flat as all get out, you know. And so this golden mountain appeared. And as I looked, I could see all these different places like alongside it, as if it was this whole city. And I thought, what in the world am I seeing? And I sort of poked my friend, and she said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And I said, yeah, I think so. And it was this beautiful, I had no idea what it was until I was researching the city called the City of the Heavens, called Mount Meru. And that's in the Hindu tradition, Mount Meru, and the Buddhist tradition from which that comes. So, and there was a city of Mount Meru, and it described all the sides of it and which beings guarded which side of the mountain. And it's quite interesting. And I thought, by the description, that's what it looked like.
And so what always fascinates me is when people see visions, and this will can lead into a different not really a different conversation, but I'm sure many people have this question is, when visited by angels, is there a reason? Because it's like, why doesn't everybody see angels every day? Or so what is a visitation to certain people mean? Or does that mean there's an awakening within yourself on a spiritual level? Or are you in dire need of a change in your life? Why do angels step in to make themselves appear before you?
Well, that's a good question. One thing I think for sure is that it brings us back to an awareness that we don't know everything. And we don't know the answers to many things out there. And that the world is a greater place than we could even imagine. There's so many more mysteries. I think about, that story of Jacob wrestling the angel. Now, that's one of those that really taps my imagination. I watch him standing on this cliff, trying to push this angel off the cliff and get out of here, leave me alone, And what's fascinating to me is that Jacob is he's been a rapscallion. Yes, there he is. He's been a rapscallion his whole life. And he's not necessarily the kind of person that one would want to save. In fact, he's someone that the angel would want to push off, but the angel doesn't push him off. He just kind of holds him there in place. And Jacob says, tell me your name. And he says, I'm not going to let you go until you tell me your name. And he won't say anything. He just keeps, standing there. And it was sort of like the moment where Jacob wakes up. He's like, oh, he gets his name changed to Israel.
Right.
He is told in not so many words by this angel that he's a redeemable soul. And I really, really think that is one of the most important things that angels can tell us, is that we are redeemable souls. They can save us from a heck of a lot of danger when we're in places we shouldn't be. Like the back roads of Cairo, they'll show up and say, no, you're not supposed to be here. You're over there.
Right.
And I feel like the fact that they believe in us, that we have more value than we think we have, I think is really important. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. It did. And I think, because a lot of people that do have encounters, I've heard about near-death experiences, seeing loved ones or seeing angels, or even the near-death experience alone changed their way of thinking, even enlightened, being intuitive. Have you heard about being more intuitive after an encounter with angels?
Yes. I have. Many people I've talked to about that. That seems to be one of the things that they have a hard time wrapping their minds around, because we all know the things that we've done in the past that would not make us necessarily angel worthy, right?
Right.
And yet some spiritual being comes up and says, you are worthy, and tells us that we have a mission. They don't necessarily tell us the mission.
Right.
But boy, that certainly wakes us up and causes us to, take a new direction in our lives. And I've seen that happen many, many times with near-death experiences and with just about, someone on the brink of death that comes back.
Do you think, because I've heard this, when my mom passed away, she's like, oh, your mom is now an angel looking over you or looking out for you. Do you believe human beings that pass on to the next realm instantly become angels? And is there a difference between guardian angel and, I guess, an angel?
Yeah, angels all have different jobs,
Okay.
And I'm going to say, in my opinion, I do think that we do not become angels, that your mother is with the angels that are looking out for you, and that spirits and angels live in the same realm now.
Right.
But I don't think she's necessarily an angel. I think that angels have always been angels. But there's a certain, we were talking about guardian angels, and there's a certain idea among angelologists, who are people who think about angels all the time, who say that an angel resonates with us. They are beings of light, and so are we. In fact, we are beings of light, and the light within us resonates to the light that's within them, and that it doesn't matter. It's like quantum mechanics. It doesn't matter between time and space and any distance. If this light has ever been in contact with this light, then the two resonate. And so that's how they find each other. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does make sense. It does make sense. Yeah, and I also believe that we don't become instant angels because many of us, I think, have been reincarnated over and over and over again because we're still learning. And I believe angels are probably one of the higher levels of, maybe after my 50th time on Earth or whatever other planet I've ever existed on, maybe I do graduate to like an angel status, and then I don't have to return to Earth as a living being.
Right.
But I definitely don't believe, but I do believe our parents or our loved ones may have some influence going, hey, watch out for my boy.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that one of my favorite angels is called Peniel, and it's Peniel, and that is supposedly the name of the angel that Jacob was wrestling with. But he shows up in a lot of different ways, and in many stories, his definition is the angel who saves us from our own stupidity. I really like him. He saves us from our own stupidity. And I thought, yeah, I could use that guy around here.
Right. I've made a many stupid mistakes over my lifetime, and luckily, as I get older, I make less and less. But we still need it.
Right.
But one thing that we talk about, human beings, we all have free will. We make mistakes. people on our planet, we have wars, we commit murder and lie, steal, and don't always treat each other as well as we probably should have, or not probably, should. But angels, we hear mostly as angelic, meaning good, for the better good and godly like. But we also hear about the devil, fallen angels. And what is your take on fallen angels and demons and devils? Do you feel that angels can, after, let's say, 100 times coming back to earth and getting promoted to a full-on angel, make that choice to go against, if you're Christian, God, or go against the spiritual council, universal council, whatever you want to call it? Do you feel that they still have that ego or evil in their being itself?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think that there is no doubt in my mind that there are spiritual beings who are not necessarily acting nice. And I'm going to say they're in the spirit realm. They're
Right.
not necessarily spiritual beings, but they're not good folks to hang out with. And they're more like, the way I think of them is they're like cautionary tales. It's like people who play with Ouija boards.
Right.
That really gets me. They start getting in there and they're messing around, and it's like, whoa, is anybody here? And you ask that question and there'll be somebody going, yes, I'm here.
Right.
It's like, whoa.
They're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the same thing that I think that Zoroastrians they had it down where they had the angel on one shoulder and the angel on the other, or the devil on
Right.
the other, Ahura Mazda and his counterpart. And they were beings of the intellect, which is very interesting to me, because they were thought forms more than anything else.
Right.
And it's like negative thinking is what brings in this energy, this negative energy. And if you ever want to see it demonstrated, well, it'll be demonstrated to you. But if you're constantly trying to bring in the positive energy and stay on the side of the light, then that's more likely what you'll experience. However, doubt comes into everyone's psyche. And, when you have moments of doubt, those negative beings will rush right in. And so you have to, stay on the side of the light if you can.
Right. Well, I want to ask you, this just popped into my head. Like I said, I'm more of a conversationalist, and things that you say just kind of bring up other questions. And a lot of times when we talk about religions, especially the Christian religion, is there, in your studies, is there one that is more, I guess, intriguing to you in a religion or a culture over the others? Because, in Christianity, and this is where I have my biggest issue with, saying, if you don't believe in Christ, you're not going to heaven. It's hard for me to believe that. I always said, if my mother, when she was alive, she had 4 kids. No matter what we did, she may not liked our decision, but she loved us no matter what, and the door was always open. And I always say, if God, or the creator of all, won't let me in because I don't make the right decisions or I don't say the right words, won't let me into the kingdom. So I always say, so you're saying my mother has more of a forgiveness than God, and God is supposed to be greater than all. So where I'm going is angels. So do angels in your mind, in the Christianity culture, if, let's say, you're an atheist, do the angels just say, leave that one alone? Or do we still surround this person and try to bring a conscience or the right direction, and we're not going to give up on this person until the day they cross over? What is your thoughts on that? And is there a religion that do have angels that are like that, meaning we're going to stick with this person until they're on our over here on our side?
I do believe that love is the actual answer to every dilemma.
Right.
And whether a person knows Christ or knows any of the other deities, as long as they are acting out of love to people around them, to if they are in gratitude for the life that they have, I don't think that they can fall out of heaven. I just don't believe that.
Right.
I think that one of the, there are lots of really interesting stories about how one person's angel becomes another culture's devil, And so there's an interesting one to me is the Yazidis, who are a group of people that live in Iraq and Iran and near the mountain where Noah's Ark was supposedly,
right,
stuck. They're this wonderful culture that originally they've kind of migrated now because, the ISIS was trying to wipe them out because they thought they were devils. And they were only allowed to marry inside their own group. And they believed that they were descendants of an angel called the Peacock Angel, who was named Tos Melech. And and Tos Melech is this very beautiful angel, with peacock wings, and he, spreads his wings over the earth and protects them, and he makes all the colors in the fields out of the feathers of his body. But a lot of people believe that this peacock angel is a devil. And devil is the word that they use when they're like, there's a deva, which are the angelic beings of the Hindus, and there's a peacock deva.
Wow.
So there's a similarity there between them. But the stories of Tos Melech are somewhat similar to a lot of the stories that we hear about, Judeo-Christian stories about, Jesus having to die for our sins. Tos Melech did that, and came back.
Right,
So, you can't say, well, your religion's BS because I believe in mine. But I think that there are so many crossovers in so many areas we have to really give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stories that overlap each other from all different, I wouldn't even say religions, but different cultures from the ancient times. So yeah, it definitely it makes you think that what is the truth?
Right. It's out there somewhere. That's what I've heard.
We seem to find a lot of information and a lot of new discoveries more and more and more and more. So who knows, we may end up finding the truth one of these days. And like Betty White, before she passed away, she says, I can't wait to know the secret. So we'll eventually know the secret anyway. So
That's right. That's right.
So what is one of your favorite stories of angels from mythology or religious writings? What are some of your top ones? Because I'm sure there's many.
Yeah, Jacob was one.
Yeah.
This is a more recent story, but there was this wonderful book called The Jew in the Lotus. I don't know if it's still in print or not, but I read this book, and it's a story about a rabbi having a conference with the Dalai Lama. And they were talking about we believe this, do you believe that, And it was just this very exciting edge of discussion where the Dalai Lama was filled with like, oh, really? We have that in our religion too. Oh, really? We have that in our religion too. It was just kind of a fun book. And I highly recommend The Jew and the Lotus. That's one of my favorites of cross-cultural. One other one that was really fascinating to me, interesting, is I think it's called Cokesville, the Cokesville massacre, which was a group of children who had been inside the school that was Latter-day Saints. And this couple decided they were going to go and hold them all hostage. And they were going to shoot every one of them until their parents brought them $1 million, And it was kind of crazy, but they rigged themselves up with these bombs, and they could have blown the whole town to Kingdom Come had they wanted. Right. And so they stand there in this standoff, and the children began to gather over in one corner of the room. And they stood there, they held hands, they prayed, they obeyed the instructions of these beings of light that they said were angels who told them to go and stand in this one corner and that they would not be harmed. And so, as it turned out, during the day, the man went to go to the bathroom and left his wife with the trigger tied around her hand. And so she scratched her nose, and that was that. Well, she was no more, but the explosives blew straight up. They didn't blow out like we expect them to. They blew straight up. And at that moment, the angels, so the teachers and the students say, told them to run for the door. And they did. And every single one of them was saved. Wow. Now, the thing that's so fascinating to me about this is that when the children, what did the angels look like? That's what everybody wanted to know. What did they look like? And so they would be sitting with their parents, and they would be going through photo albums and say, well, my angel looked like this one. My angel looked like that one. And come to find out, there were ancestors who had been accompanied by these angels, and the ancestors were the ones that guided them on the path to get out of the way. And the angels were the ones who put their wings around the explosives, and it blew upward. It's just the most amazing story. Yeah. And I don't have any way to explain that.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful story. And I think, a lot of people may have angel encounters. I remember one time back in the day, I remember I talked to God or, the universe, or whatever you want to say, a lot. And I still do, and I would always not test the universe, but I would ask for signs. And lo and behold, a lot of times they would happen very quickly. Like a white dove would fly over my head out of nowhere. Not a gray one, but an actual white dove. Or people would come up and tap me on the shoulder. And I remember once the lady, I was just standing there, contemplating life, and I was in my 20s, and and the lady just tapped me on the shoulder and said, God loves you. You're in the right path. And I was just like, where did that come from? Nobody was around me. She came from behind. I didn't even see where she came from. And, she didn't disappear, but she walks off. So I know things happen. But, 1,000 years ago, if we would have had a cigarette lighter, people would think we were gods. How do people know? I always said if Jesus Christ landed in the middle of Times Square, people would probably think he was a nut, claiming he was the second coming. How do people in 2023 receive angels in a modern day? How do they even intervene or approach us so that we believe that this is an angelic encounter?
Right. Well, I think the only thing that we can do if that ever happens to us is to just say thank you. I appreciate that I'm on the right path. Thank you. I don't know if you know the work of Robert Moss. He's a dream teacher.
Right. I've heard of him. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, he's really great. He has this book out called It's Only a Dream, It's Only My Imagination, or It's Only a Coincidence. And his theory is that none of those are true. It is meant to be. It is not a dream. It is not a coincidence. It is not your imagination. And that is how spirit connects with us. And the more, yes, there he is. God bless him. He's a wonderful man. And the more that we connect with God, the more that these things will happen to us, and they will come to us so that they're no longer surprising. They just are what they are, I was thinking the other day, I was like, have I had an angelic encounter recently? Yes, I did. I was driving my car down an icy road, and this big old truck, unmarked, comes over on my side of the road and pushes me all the way off the road. The side view mirror goes flying up in the air,
right.
And I'm being pushed off into the median. And I don't know how I managed to stay upright, because it seemed like I was definitely going to go over. And when I got out of the car, I put my foot down right in front of a white feather.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I just held that feather and said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, And I believe I was being looked out for.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel presence of, I don't know about angels, but I'm sure they're there. But I call upon my angels all the time, my guides and guardians to surround me, to protect me, me and my family, my spouse, everything. So I definitely say that almost every day. So and I do feel protected. And well, before we get out of here, over the years we've seen many TV shows about angels. Touched by an Angel, which was on for many seasons before Michael Landon passed away. Lucifer on Netflix. Other shows about angels, and it's fascinating. Hollywood is even how they are portrayed. But what is your take on the latest with Lucifer, the Netflix? Because he's considered the devil,
Yes.
in human flesh.
Even the devil can be redeemed, but I do kind of like his attitude sometimes.
Yeah, right. Me too.
He's very funny, but he can be redeemed. And when I started to go back and look at, okay, so who's Amenadiel? Okay, so who's, and I started like tracing all these things back, and I thought, the person who wrote that was Neil Gaiman, I believe, was the first person who started on that series, and he had his angels down. What I was researching, that was what I was seeing on the television. It was quite interesting. And I liked Lucifer's take on it. He said, you're the one who tells me I'm the devil. He's like, I just give people what they deserve.
Right.
It's not me. I don't hate people. That's my job.
Right. Yeah. And, it goes back to the book of Judas, Judas, how, the religion portrays him as a traitor, but yet, many of them says Jesus told him to do this. So I think he was just like the devil. Is he really as evil as they say, or is it, we don't know. I mean, we don't know until we learn the secret, but maybe even then we may not know the whole truth. But
right.
It's great stories. It's great tales to tell, and but I do love to talk about angels. I think it's fascinating, and as we say, we use it all the time. You're an angel. You tell people, oh, you're such an angel. I hear it. My aunt used to call me a little angel when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely we use those in a positive way. And it's always, like you said, love is always the answer. And so if angels can be considered another term for love, then, I think let's use it as much as possible.
So be it.
So, well, how do people find your book? And do you have any talks or anything coming up? Or
Well, I do. You can get my book pretty much at most bookstores. It's being distributed by Simon and Schuster, and so
Congrats.
most bookstores, if you ask for it, will be able to find it. I'll be doing some work at Lilydale in July, which will be fun. I will be in Chesterfield, Indiana, teaching as well, pretty much through the summer. And I'll be going to Egypt again. If you want to come to Egypt with me, and I'll show you some really beautiful meshing of Judaism and Christianity and Islam all in one little part of the city in Cairo. So that's going to be in November. And just check my website, NormandiEllis.com.
Perfect. Well, Normandy, thank you. And how did you come about of Normandy? Who?
Oh, that's my father.
Was he like in World War II or something?
He was, but he was in Australia.
Oh, okay.
But he named me after a comic strip character.
Oh, really?
Normandy. Yeah.
I thought it was like the beaches of Normandy or something. They just spelled it differently. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you being on the show. I loved the conversation, and I hope everybody goes out and picks up the book, The Ancient Tradition of Angels. And I have to say, you have several books, I think.
Yes.
If I looked on Amazon, there I was like, woo, she's been busy. So
right. But this is the only one on angels that I have.
Well, a lot of times you're on Egyptian mysticism, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to have you back and talk to you about that as a separate interview. So.
Okay.
I would love
Tony,
it.
It was great meeting you.
You too. And thank you, everybody. And please go visit and support our amazing guest today, Normandi Ellis. And then make sure you pick up your tickets for Parapod Festival. It's coming up 3 weeks from this weekend. We're having a ghost town tour on March 31st, stargazing with Ben Hansen from the TV show Fact or Fake and UFO Files. Patty Negri, the good witch, the white witch of Hollywood, is going to be there taking us on a tour of the ghost town. And then also you're going to go get your tickets for Saturday, April 1st, which is the conference itself. It's panels, speakers, workshops, vendor marketplace, Billy Carson, Linda Moulton Howe. We have so many amazing speakers that going to be there. And then also we're going to have an awards ceremony for the first content awards, such as podcast, social media. We have some TikTokers, YouTubers that have just blown me away on their content online. So, well, until next time, I'm Tony Sweet. Take care of yourself and each other, and I'll talk to you soon. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows.